بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم۔ السلام علیکم۔ ڈاکٹر منور حسین آپ کے پیش خدمت ہے۔ ایران امریکہ اسرائیل جنگ میں روز تبدیلیاں رونما ہو رہی ہیں اور روز ایک نئی ڈیولپمنٹ ہمارے سامنے آ رہی ہے۔ روز امریکہ اور اسرائیل پینتھرے تبدیل کر رہا ہے، لیکن ایران کے جو بیہیویئر ہے اور وار کی جو اسٹریٹجی ہے وہ بڑی کنسسٹنٹ ہے، وہ ٹس سے مس ہونے کو بظاہر تیار نہیں ہے۔ پچھلی دفعہ میں نے ایک ڈیولپمنٹ آپ کے ساتھ ڈسکس کیا کہ ٹائمز آف اسرائیل، رائٹرز، فائنینشیل ٹائمز، NZS، ان سب نے رپورٹ کیا کہ انٹینس اس وقت نیگوسیشنز چل رہے ہیں امریکہ اور ایران کے درمیان میں، جس کا اشارہ خود پریزیڈنٹ ٹرمپ نے بھی دیا، لیکن ایرانی اسے تسلیم نہیں کرے کہ کوئی ڈائریکٹ بات چیت نہیں ہو رہی، لیکن خطے کے کچھ فرینڈلی ممالک جس میں پاکستان، ترکی، ایجپٹ اور قطر کا نام آ رہا ہے اور ایون عمان کا نام آ رہا ہے کہ وہ رابطہ کر رہے ہیں، لیکن ایران کی اب تک شرائط بڑی سخت ہیں۔ اس پہ گفتگو کرنے کے لیے میرے ساتھ بہت ہی اہم ایران کے جرنلسٹ جو کہ ایوارڈ وننگ جرنلسٹ ہیں، 15 سال کا انہیں تجربہ ہے، مڈل ایسٹ کی جیو پولیٹکس اور جیو اکانومی پہ بڑی گرپ رکھتے ہیں، یوسف جلالی، ان کا میں انٹرویو کروں گا۔ ان سے چند سوالات آپ کے لیے پوچھوں گا کہ اس وقت وار کا اسٹیٹس کیا ہے، کیا بات چیت کے لیے ایران تیار ہے، کیا پاور کی ایکویشن خطے میں تبدیل ہوتی نظر آ رہی ہے، کیا جو ریزسٹنس فورسز ہیں وہ اس جنگ میں کود سکتی ہیں اگر تھرڈ پارٹی بھی اس جنگ کے اندر آتی ہے، جو بظاہر نظر آ رہا ہے کہ نیٹو کے کچھ ممالک ٹوکن اپنی پریزنس کو یہاں پہ شو کریں۔ لیکن اس سے پہلے جو ایک کی ڈیولپمنٹ ہے وہ آپ کے سامنے رکھنا چاہتا ہوں، اور وہ ڈیولپمنٹ یہ ہے کہ خاتم الانبیاء ایک فورس ہے جن کے اسپوکس پرسن بھی اکثر آپ کو نظر آتے ہیں اور ایران کی اسٹریٹجی اور میڈیا کو جو ہے وہ ٹیکل کرتے آپ کو نظر آتے ہیں۔ ان کے کمانڈر ہیں میجر جنرل علی عبداللہ۔ انہوں نے ایک شاکنگ قسم کی اسٹیٹمنٹ دی ہے۔ انہوں نے کہا کہ ایران کی جو ڈیفینسو اسٹریٹجی ہے اس کو اب ہم آفینسو میں تبدیل کرنے جا رہے ہیں، یعنی ان کے جو لفظ ہیں وہ یہ کہ کنٹری آرمڈ فورسز ہیو شفٹیڈ دیئر ڈاکٹرائن فرام ڈیفینس ٹو offense alongside the deployment of newer and more advanced weapon system to confront America-Israel attack۔ اب آپ with the power equation، اس کا مطلب یہ کہ وہ جو اسرائیل کی اسٹریٹجی ہے وہ آفینسو اسٹریٹجی ہے، میسو ریٹیلیشن کی اسٹریٹجی ہے۔ ایران نے بھی اس کو اڈاپٹ کرنا شروع کیا ہے اور وہ کہہ رہے ہیں نئے ویپن انٹروڈیوس کروائیں گے، جس میں ایران کے جو سائنٹسٹ ہیں انہوں نے رات دن محنت کر کے نئے ویپنز جو ہے اس کو ان کا اجرا کیا ہے، اور یہ سرپرائز دے گا امریکہ کو، اسرائیل کو اور ان کے پارٹنرز کو خطے کے اندر۔ وہ کیا ویپنز ہوں گے؟ ایک تو یہ سرپرائز ہے۔ اس کے ساتھ یہ دیکھنا ہوگا کہ ایران سمجھتا ہے کہ ان کی اب پوزیشن بڑی مستحکم ہے، وہ اب ڈیفینس سے آفینس کی طرف جائیں گے، اور جب آفینس کی طرف جائیں گے تو غالباً اتنا انجری وہ انفلکٹ کرنا چاہتے ہیں اسرائیل اور امریکہ کو کہ وہ اس خطے میں دوبارہ اٹھنے نہ پائیں یا داخل ہونے نہ پائیں، جو میری سمجھ میں۔ اس سوال کا جواب لیتے ہیں اگین یوسف جلالی سے کہ وہ اس معاملے کو کس طرح سے دیکھتے ہیں۔ آئیے سنتے ہیں یوسف جلالی کو۔ بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم۔ السلام علیکم۔ اس وقت میرے ساتھ یوسف جلالی ہیں، سینئر جرنلسٹ ہیں مڈل ایسٹ سے اور ایران سے، اور اس وقت ایوارڈ وننگ جرنلسٹ ہیں، ٹی وی جرنلسٹ ہیں، اور ان کی اسپیشلائزیشن جو ہے وہ مڈل ایسٹ جیو پولیٹکس کلچر ہے، اور تقریباً 15 سالہ ان کا تجربہ ہے۔ یوسف جلالی، فرسٹ آف آل تھینک یو ویری مچ فار یور ٹائم فار آور شو۔ Yusuf, my first question,
Pleasure.
my first question would be, what is the condition on the ground at this moment? Because we are listening various news from West, from Middle East, and even from the media outlets of Pakistan that behind the door, very intense diplomacy is going on to manage this war. So what is going on?
Well, all we can resort to for now is public statements made by Iranian officials, because I'm personally reporting from Tehran, and I have to just rely on public statements made by Iranian officials. And so far, we've not seen any indication from Tehran that there have been such talks going on, whether directly or indirectly. But of course, from Western news outlets, if you review reports by Axios, for example, they have described in details the nature of the talks, the timing, the schedule, the venue for the peace talks, Pakistan being a mediator between Iran and the United States. But of course, Iran has not shown any sign or any indication of diplomatic engagement with the United States. Of course, it has to be, and regarding the pause that Donald Trump talked about, the pause in attacks targeting Iran's infrastructure, energy infrastructure, or power plants, there have been some attacks targeting critical infrastructure and ballistic missile storage facilities, and of course, even nuclear facilities have been targeted. So there has been no pause in the military back and forth between the two sides. And it's either Iran does not want to acknowledge or is not ready yet to acknowledge that it has been engaged in talks with the US, or it is not actually engaged in any kind of diplomacy with the US. But of course, on the battlefield, on the ground, we have not witnessed any sign that diplomacy has replaced military pressure.
By the way, is Iran ready for these talks? What is the mood of the government, especially those who are now in charge of the affairs? Frankly speaking, the senior leadership has been retired, so new leadership is in power. So, what is their mood, by the way?
Well, of course, Donald Trump did not mention who he's talking to. He just said top person, and that top person in the power structure of the Islamic Republic, the top person means the supreme leader. And then he was asked who was that top person. He did not just elaborate on who that person is. And the supreme leader in Iran is now Mujtaba Khamenei. And Mujtaba Khamenei is known for his hawkish rhetoric towards the United States and the Western Hemisphere, and in particular the United States and Washington. So if it's Mujtaba Khamenei, then it is highly unlikely that there have been some serious talks, at least, going on between the two sides. But if he's talking about some person like Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, who is now by far the most senior Iranian official at the moment, because we had Larijani who has been taken out. We had other people, other officials have been taken out so far, military and of course statesmen were taken out by the United States and Israel. Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf is now considered the highest ranking official in Iran. And Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf himself, the Speaker of Iran's parliament, denied any kind of diplomatic engagement with the US. He called those words by Donald Trump a means to escape, quote unquote, the quagmire of the war with Iran. And he said that Donald Trump is trying to buy time for further attacks against Iran or to try to drive down oil prices. And from the words of Bagher Ghalibaf, we cannot see any sign or any signal that Iran has indeed been talking to the United States. But of course, we have seen some words or heard some words coming from the foreign minister, who acknowledged that there have been some mediation efforts by some countries. He did not acknowledge the fact that, or he did not just admit Iran's engagement, diplomatic engagement with the US, but he said that there have been some mediation efforts going on by multiple countries, multiple intermediaries like Turkey, Oman, and Pakistan. And we do know that these three countries have, since day one of this conflict, been issuing statements, trying to calm down the situation and de-escalate. We heard several statements coming from Shehbaz Sharif, the Pakistani prime minister, and of course coming from Badr al-Busaidi from Oman, and of course from Hakan Fidan, the Turkish foreign minister. And these guys, these gentlemen, have been involved in just trying to bridge the gap between Iran and the United States. They have been talking to the US, they've been talking to the Iranian side. So from this, we can understand that there have been some back channel talks going on between the two sides, but whether or not those talks have led to direct engagement or have led to some serious initiatives to plan a peace talk initiative in Pakistan, for example, we're not certain about that.
Yusuf, in your viewpoint and in the viewpoint of media outlets in Iran, generally the public and the leadership, what will be the end game of this war?
Well, the end game of this war has to be based on major conditions Iran has already set for the United States. First and foremost is for the United States to acknowledge Iran's right to enriching uranium and Iran's right to develop ballistic missiles, and of course, not to abandon its right to enrichment of uranium. Of course, Iran has set these conditions even during the talks with the United States when diplomacy was prevailing at the time. Iran was waiting for the fourth round of talks. It was digging in. They were insisting on their positions. They were digging in. They did not back down or budge under U.S. pressure. If you remember, at that time, the United States kept increasing and mounting the military pressure on Iran, constantly talking about the USS Abraham Lincoln carrier strike group being deployed to the region at the same time that they were engaged in talks with Iran. Iran did not back down. Iran did not, of course, budge or buckle under pressure. But now Iran is saying the same thing. Even during the full-scale conflict with the U.S., it has kept its stance and maintained its position that it is not going to abandon its right to bolster its defense industry or defense power, which means its ballistic missile program, its drone program, and it is not going to back down from, of course, enriching uranium to peaceful levels, like, for example, 3.67% cap of enrichment, uranium enrichment, which was set by the JCPOA back in 2015. That's the same thing that Iran agreed with the United States. Then the United States withdrew from the 2015 nuclear deal during Trump's first term. And then now we see that the same thing, the same cycle is being repeated over and over again by Donald Trump. And Iran says that Donald Trump betrayed diplomacy and left the negotiating table. And while everybody was talking, everybody was waiting for the next round of talks, then Iran faced missiles and faced rockets and fighter jets coming from the Israelis and the Americans. So the third condition is that the United States should guarantee that it would not attack Iran again. A permanent ceasefire should be agreed upon. A permanent ceasefire that would guarantee that Iran would not be attacked, neither by the United States nor by Israel. So we have these three conditions. If these three conditions are met, if the United States shows that it is willing to be realistic and engage with Iran on equal footing based on mutual respect and based on acknowledging Iran's sovereignty, then Iran is going to go back to the negotiating table.
Yusuf, many defense analysts of the West, of India, and other parts of the world, they believe that America is getting major injury because of this war. And at the strategic level, at operational level, at tactical level, Iran has an upper hand. So in this context, do you think that after this war, there would be a major transformation in the power structure of the region? There would be a change in power hierarchy in Middle East?
Definitely. The United States has not been able to achieve its primary goal of regime change. And Donald Trump is now trying to change the definition of regime change in order to convince his colleagues, maybe in Congress, or colleagues, senators like Ted Cruz, senators like Lindsey Graham. He is changing the definition of regime change. Everybody in the United States was waiting for a regime change following the killing and the assassination of the late Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, but that did not happen. And Iran continues to function. The Iranian power structure continues to function. They have their own supreme leader right now. They have their own the same foreign minister is leading the diplomatic apparatus in Iran. The same parliament speaker is acting right now. And we have the IRGC as a powerful military force that is engaged in firing ballistic missiles towards the Israelis and continues to pound Israel with its advanced ballistic missiles, and continues to just take its drones and just fire those drones towards the American and Israeli interests in the region. Shahed 136 drone, which is a suicide drone, a one-way UAV, which has shown that Iran has the capability to continue this fight, despite claims by the United States that they have been able to, for example, degrade or eliminate Iran's drone and ballistic missile power. But we can still see those missiles and those drones being fired towards different parts of the Middle East and including the Israeli territories. So in the eyes of Tehran, the United States was not able to achieve its primary goal, and they have shifted their goal from regime change to the reopening the Strait of Hormuz. So their goals have shifted, and this shows that they have backed down. It is the United States, based on Iran's stance. It is the U.S. that has backed down from its position. It initiated a full-scale war against Iran, and then it achieved none of its primary objectives.
Last question, Yusuf. If this war continues, do you think that the resistant forces in the region like Ansarullah, Shadeshebi, Hezbollah chapter in Iraq, and in fact Al-Quds Brigade, they will be activated and would enter into this war if third party enters in this war?
I think so, yeah. And already we have seen some movements and some activities by those forces. We have seen some activities and serious movements from Hezbollah in Lebanon, and we have seen some certain level of military activity from Hashd al-Shabi, or the Popular Mobilization Force in Iraq. And we have been waiting for an action from the Houthis or Ansarullah movement in Yemen. They have already said that their fingers are on the trigger and they're ready to engage and enter this fight when they see necessary. And they have not seen it necessary yet, because they can see how Iran is reacting and how Iran has been able to survive the strongest militaries in the world, the Israeli IDF and the American army. So there's no need for the Houthis to enter the scene now. But of course, if they want to enter the fight, then it would tighten the screw on the Americans and the Israelis. They are controlling Bab el-Mandeb Strait, another strategic choke point beside the Strait of Hormuz. The Bab el-Mandeb Strait and the Red Sea, they have already shown that they can disrupt the shipment through the Strait of Bab el-Mandeb and the Red Sea. And they can do the same again now if Iran sees fit, or if they see fit, actually, because Iran says that those groups, those resistance factions, do not follow the orders of the Islamic Republic. They can act on their own, and they have their own interests. But of course, their interests are aligned with the interests of the Islamic Republic. And if they see that the Islamic Republic is at danger, at risk, then they can enter the scene. We can see that Hezbollah has been engaged in launching rockets towards Israeli territories, sometimes at the same time with the Iranian missile barrages. The Hezbollah rocket barrages coincide with the Iranian barrages at the same time, targeting different parts of the Israeli territories. And we have seen how Hashd al-Shabi, or the Popular Mobilization Force in Iraq, have been targeting American interests in Iraq. And now everybody's waiting for the Houthis. Yes, if they enter the fight, they're most likely will enter the fight if they see it necessary. And this would change the whole scenario and will open a whole new front against the Israelis and the Americans.
Yusuf Jalali, thank you very much for your time and sharing your understanding and analysis regarding war in the Middle East, and hope this war would be ended soon and the peace would be prevailed and Iranian rights would be accepted by the international community, especially United States of America. In fact, it is hurting the very power structure of United States of America at the global politics. And from the day one, this is my understanding that if America is not though America is not understanding this, but if they are going into this war, it means they are ready to be bleeded And once they are bleated, they won't be able to stand for another war against China and Russia on the issue of Taiwan and Ukraine. This is my understanding. Anyway, thank you very much, Jalali, for your time for our show. नाज़रीन, आपने यूसुफ जलाली साहब की गुफ्तगू सुनी, उन्होंने अपने एनालिसिस का इजहार किया। फिलहाल जंग रुकते हुए तो नजर नहीं आ रही, अलबत्ता उन्होंने इस बात का इंदिया दिया है कि अगर ये जंग जारी रहती है तो फिर रेजिस्टेंस फोर्सेस भी इसमें शामिल हो जाएंगी, लेकिन जब तक ईरान की कंडीशंस नहीं तस्लीम की जाती, जब तक किसी भी बातचीत का नतीजा यही नहीं निकलेगा। यही इसका लबे लुबाब है सारी बहस का। आपके कमेंट्स का इंतजार रहेगा। इजाजत दीजिए, अल्लाह ने के बाद।